In this video, I want to answer the question why I feel there was so much hostility from Seventh-day Adventist members on YouTube. Why they conduct themselves the way they do, and why they can't come to grips with the truth. A lot of it started back in 1888 when there was this conference, General Conference, had this get-together in what came to be known as the Righteousness by Faith Conference. And there was a big schism that took place there because of the disagreements over doctrines and the errors that people saw in some of their doctrines. In fact, during that conference, because of a fallout between Ellen White and Uriah Smith, Ellen White was actually exiled to Australia for some time. And I put a link in my sidebar here about that debate and why she was exiled, so you can see it. And if Seventh-day Adventist members have the courage to read it, they can go read it as well. But anyway, a big schism took place there that is never actually ever mended. They lost thousands of members then. But the bigger schism came in 1980 that leads me to show you what I feel all the hostility from Seventh-day Adventist members on YouTube is coming from. See, in 1980 there was a Sanctuary Doctrine Review committee that met in Glacier View, Colorado. And this was mainly because Dr. Des Ford, who was at the time the leading theologian in the Seventh-day Adventist organization, had challenged the beliefs of Ellen White and had earned the right to be heard by the conference on the errors that he found in the writings of Ellen White, the errors he found in her doctrines, and in some way to set the Seventh-day Adventist on the right course of teaching people the truth. So, in fact, part of this 900-page review that he gave to the committee actually was part of his doctrinal dissertation. Again, as I mentioned earlier, he was the leading theologian inside the Seventh-day Adventist organization at the time. And so during this Glacier Review Colorado meeting, is what is called the Sanctuary Doctrine, he was showing them how Ellen White had grossly misinterpreted Daniel 8:14, the 2,300 evenings and mornings in date 14, and because of that, what the Seventh-day Adventist teaching was wrong about investigative judgment, and they were wrong about their sanctuary doctrine. They were wrong in trying to say that Jesus did not begin atonement until 1844 due to the misinterpretation of Daniel 8:14, and they were wrong about the sanctuary doctrine, saying that in 1844 Jesus left the holy place and entered into the most holy place in heaven in 1844 to begin atonement, something that took place on his ascension almost 1,800 years earlier. And Dr. Ford tried to show them how wrong this was, how biblically wrong it was, and it had nothing whatsoever to do with the gospel of Jesus Christ. And he pointed out the errors of their wrong interpretation about investigative judgment and about the 2,300 days, which in fact led to more things being wrong because of that. And he wasn't trying to say do away with Ellen White or do away with the writings of Ellen White. The only thing he was doing is showing how wrong she was. And if they wanted to continue to use her material, was fine with him. Just don't try to tell the members that it's inspired material when there's so much wrong inside it. Look at it as nothing more than a writing from Knox or Calvin or Luther, who interpreted the Bible, and just look at it nothing more than that. But don't try to make out to the members that this woman who had made so many errors and misled the Seventh-day Adventists was an inspired prophetess. And don't try to interpret the Bible by what they think are her infallible writings when there's so many errors in them. And that's all Dr. Ford was trying to do. We can stay Seventh-day Adventists, but we don't have to teach people lies like this. We can tell them the truth about investigative judgment, that it's wrong. We can tell them that the sanctuary doctrine is wrong. And we can still be the Seventh-day Adventists, but we'll just be teaching the truth now. So after he's trying to show them the errors of Ellen White's interpretations, how she was wrong about this, and remember again now this is the leading theologian who is trying to tell them this. What the conference does then is sweeps it under the rug as though it never happened, covers it up and lies to the members, and you know what they did with their leading theologian? They fired him because he dared challenge the writings of Ellen White. Now that'll be important in a minute, and I'll show you why. But because of that, over 100 ministers left the Seventh-day Adventist Church then, and millions of members left, and they have never recovered from it and will not recover from it until they start telling their people the truth. Now, this is why I feel the hostility is coming up from members on Seventh-day Adventist. You see, here's why the General Conference of Seventh-day Adventists, and especially Ellen White of Stage 2, wants to cover these things up and what their leading theologians said about Ellen White being wrong. You see, if they ever lose Ellen White, they will lose their ability to manipulate members. Hear me there? If they ever lose the writings of Ellen White, where she is no longer the inspired prophet, then they lose their ability to manipulate and control their members. Control them by telling them that they will receive the mark of the beast if they leave the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Scare them by saying, God, if you disobey Ellen White, you've disobeyed God. And other things they tell them through manipulation of the writings of a false prophetess of Ellen White that Dr. Ford tried to point out to them was wrong. If they lose her as their inspired prophet, then they can no longer manipulate members. They can't tell them from then on, don't look at the writings of other people. They're wrong. Or don't look at what other people have to say. All they're trying to do is confuse you. And so here, especially here in America, Seventh-day Adventists are just crumbling. They're falling apart. There's probably less than 500 million in North America now, even though they want to list 1 million on their rolls. I doubt very seriously if that number is accurate. It's another reason why they're trying to go to third world countries to make up for the loss here in America, where people have found out the truth. And about what Dr. Ford had tried to say about the writings of Ellen White, and their leading theologian who discovered their error. And he's not the only one to discover this, others had too. But they turn around and fire him in order to maintain the Ellen White status where they can manipulate and frighten members. And not a lot of members inside the Seventh-day Adventists even know anything about this. And it's easy for them to find out if they would just have the courage to go look at it. But yet these members on YouTube now have their hostility because they see their false prophet is falling apart. They see she's not the inspired prophet that they have spent years believing in, that their leading theologians show she's wrong. And it's like, you know, here's their hero, and all of a sudden their hero has been taken down, and she's not really what they thought she would be. And yet, in their minds, you know, we've got to hold on to this. We've got to hold on to this. We can't let our inspired prophet go down. And so, before truth becomes reality to them, the hostility sets in, and where they're hostile toward anyone. It's not just me. They're hostile toward anyone who disagrees with their writings. Oh, they'll come in, you know, and, oh, God bless you. Oh, thank you. Oh, da-da-da. But then when you start disagreeing with them and showing them where they're wrong, the hostility quickly jumps up. The videos about you jump up. The lies about you start because they cannot handle their false prophet falling apart. This was their hero. It's like losing Superman or the Lone Ranger to them, I suppose. But it's all because their false prophet has been challenged and been proven to be wrong, and they cannot accept it and will not accept truth. Their leading theologian in 1980 at the Sanctuary Review conference in Glacier View, Colorado, showed them where the writings of Ellen White was wrong. And he's not the only one who's ever done this. But they would not tell their members. They hid it because they knew if they ever lost Ellen White as their inspired prophetess, infallible prophetess, they could no longer manipulate people and scare them into staying Seventh-day Adventist. Bottom line is, they will lose money and fame. Until next time, this has been Golly saying,